Look, if your house catches on fire and you call 911, you probably think the fire trucks are just a few minutes away. The shocking reality is that too often in this country, that is not the case. A critical shortage of firefighters is putting the lives of citizens and first responders at risk. W5 begins its 57th season with an investigation into a series of deadly fires with shockingly lengthy response times. Take a look.
Brandon's mother and Grant were still trapped in the inferno, and he thought for sure fire crews would be pulling up any second. They didn't.
I put the ladder up against the window, and as soon as I broke the window, I should never have done that because the room exploded. Shot me about 30 feet off the ladder. Those images are still haunting me to this day.
What's it going to take? It's going to take somebody dying. At this point in time, society is risking an awful lot with the current level of fire services within Canada. We need help.
Is that difficult for you to say?
Absolutely. Keeps you up at night.
Wow. So W5 investigative journalist and managing editor Avery Haynes joined us now. Avery, thank you so much as always, and congratulations on the 57th season. And what a way to begin the season. I think many people will be shocked to learn this. You know, often here in a city like Toronto, you call 911, the fire department's the first to show up. So what did you find, and why is it relevant to communities across the country? I imagine because it's life-threatening.
Well, you know, and you're absolutely right. If you live in an urban area, you have full-time firefighters who respond within minutes. But the astounding figure for me, Christina, is that 83% of firefighters in this country are volunteers. And so it's when you get into the more rural areas that the problems are really exposed themselves by the fact that there is this critical shortage of volunteers who are willing to come in and do what is really extraordinary work while they're trying to juggle, you know, full-time jobs and families as well. We hyper-focused on the Kawartha Lakes region, a couple of hours north of Toronto, because it is seen as sort of the canary in the coal mine, that there are communities outside of urban centers right across the country that are having similar experiences. And if there's a volunteer fire department in a rural area, the recommended response time is 14 minutes. And in the Kawartha Lakes region, we found that 1 out of every 4 fires has a response time of greater than 20 minutes. And you know, every minute counts, every second counts when it comes to a fire. But not just over 20 minutes. We found 28 minutes, 29 minutes, 41 minutes. We looked at one fire, and the woman who died in that fire was just her house was 750 meters away from a fire station.
Wow.
It's a 1-minute drive, and it took 47 minutes for anyone from that fire station to respond to her call.
Well, as you point out, people are volunteers. They have jobs, they have families. You get the call as a volunteer, you might not be able to meet the needs of that call. Avery, let's talk about why this is happening. Certainly there's a lot of interest, particularly amongst young people, to be firefighters. It's a difficult program to get into, you know, at the schools. But here you're saying is across the country, the majority of them are volunteers. Why? This is a life-threatening situation for people across the country.
Well, you know, and this is the thing. There are when you're relying on volunteers who are responding to pages and coming in, even though they're 24/7 on a page, if there's not any kind of incentive to do this, there's an aging force of volunteers that are moving away from doing that volunteering, and they're having a very difficult time finding young people who are willing to come in and dedicate. It's hundreds of hours of training. It's weekly training as well as the training just to even get into the volunteer department. And I was really surprised to learn that it was only this past summer that Ontario joined British Columbia and Quebec to have mandated response times when it comes to actually how much training they get, regulated training, minimum standards. And this is the thing that's crazy. All those other provinces don't have any minimum standards for training. I did a training for a day, and I have to tell you, I had my hats off to the people who were volunteering, because it was exceedingly difficult just even to put all that equipment on. We did a simulated flashover, which is one of the deadliest things that can happen in a fire, where there's fire on, all surfaces. And if you stood up, your helmet would melt. And while I was in there, Christina, just to give a sense of what these people put themselves through just in the training, a big piece of plywood came down, fell on my leg and set my leg on fire, the protective suit of my leg on fire. So these people are extraordinary, but they're, you heard from the chief in that clip that you played, they are, it's a hope and a prayer that other people are going to be responding to fires when they get that call.
And Avery, let's talk about why there are volunteer firefighters. And what I mean by that is, unlike police and ambulance services across the country, the fire service is funded by municipalities. Why aren't municipalities funding the fire service so that they don't need to rely on the volunteer model?
It comes down to money. I mean, the volunteer model is used right across North America. It comes down to money. Ontario municipalities save $1 billion a year by relying on volunteers. But this report is really seen as a wake-up call, what's happening in the city of Kawartha Lakes, that will be viewed by other communities across the country, because you have to do this sort of delicate balance. People don't want their property taxes going up, but they want to know that if they have a fire and call 911, that it's not going to take 47 minutes to get somebody there.
Well, I hope your report brings about change. Thank you so much, Avery, for all the work you and your team do. We really appreciate it. And of course, I should point out, the 57th season of W5 begins Saturday. You can watch it at 7 on CTV. Thank you, Avery.
Thank you.